Morning Talk on SAFM.
Many thanks to Vabakshini Chetty and the news team. A very good morning to you and welcome to Morning Talk. My name is Ayek Partha and we're together until 12 midday. I'm sitting in for Sikim Gabateli. Starting off the show today, the Stop the NYDA campaign. It's a campaign which is driven by Vusi Tembegwayo. He's a motivational speaker and he's going to be joining us in the show in a short while. And this campaign has received mixed reactions from various social networks. And it looks at the NYDA service delivery record and says its leaders have forgotten the golden rule that service is about the greater good for the greater number. And this morning we're going to be asking, is the NYDA delivering on its mandate and how effective have they been? So our guests will be Vusi Tembegwayo, motivational speaker, as well as Katu Ramukumba. He's the Chief Financial Officer at the National Youth Development Agency. Reading some of the reactions to the campaign, NYDA should be disbanded, replaced with a youth development partnership, all stakeholders completely apolitical. This is from Vuyusa Q. And another tweet which has said, I'm 100% behind Stop the NYDA during Youth Month. Find out more about it, then decide for yourself. That's Mangazi. And Vuyusa Q also has been very active, says the NYDA is the National Youth Development Agency by name only, and we need to stop it. So we're going to ask for your views once again on the show once our guests have arrived. Between 10 and 11, we'll continue with the ANC centenary celebrations commemorating the life and contribution of Pixley Seme to the national democratic struggle for freedom and for his outstanding contribution to the struggle against colonialism on the African continent. Pixley Seme was the President General of the ANC from 1930 to 1936. Then, just after the 10:30 news headlines, Psychological Matters with Hanan Bushkin, How to Survive Cheating, Infidelity and Lying. Hanan Bushkin is a psychologist at the Anxiety and Trauma Clinic, and he'll also be taking your calls. Between 11 and 11:05 and 11:35 on Siki's Corner, we'll be celebrating Brahim Sikela, internationally acclaimed trumpeter, band leader, composer and lyricist. And he will be joining us via telephone line, and we'll talk more about that here on SAFM, South Africa's news and information leader. Remember that our lines are always open, and telephone number to dial 0891 104 207, 0891 104 207, our SMS line 34701, and those are charged at 2 rand.
Join Tsepiso on PM Live.
Is it possible that you were speaking at cross purposes or you both misunderstood each other on that final resolution?
No, I don't think that we misunderstood one another. The decision of the bilateral was very categorical. It basically said that we're postponing the implementation and that we are looking for alternative mechanism to fund the 20 billion rands or so that Central have to pay to the third parties. And there was no question about that being a recommendation. It is a decision.
COSATU's General Secretary Zwelinsi Mavavi.
PM Live, wrapping up the day's events weekdays between 4 and 6.
The gathering of global role players in the information and communication technology industry, the ICT Indaba 2012, will not only benefit high-end players in the sector, but will also help small to medium enterprises. Hosted by the Department of Communications and endorsed by the International Telecommunications Union, the Indaba takes place from the 4th to the 7th of June in Cape Town. High-powered speakers will come from countries such as China, Brazil, India, Egypt, Tanzania, Rwanda, and Mexico. Although it is being hosted by South Africa, the ICT Indaba 2012 is set to achieve outcomes that seek to develop Africa as a whole. Log on to www.ictindaba.com for more details.
Morning Talk on SAFM.
10 minutes after 9, this is Morning Talk on SAFM, South Africa's news and information leader. Today we are starting off with the Stop the NYDA campaign, and we are joined in the studio now by Katu He's Ramakumba, the Chief Financial Officer at the National Youth Development Agency. Good morning to you, and thank you for joining.
Good morning to you, Ike, and good morning to our listeners.
Let's just start firstly by establishing what the mandate of the National Youth Development Agency has been since it was established. What was the main mandate?
Okay. Ike, you would know that the National Youth Development Agency comes into being as a result of the merger of the former two erstwhile institutions, being the National Youth Commission and the Umsobombo Youth Fund. So the first thing is that the NYDA was then expected to take over that mandate, which for the National Youth Commission was mainly one of advocacy and policy influence insofar as government policies, as well as the programs that are run by government, the private sector and the civil society, in ensuring that whatever everybody does in this country takes into account youth development. Whereas if you look at the Umsobomvu side of things, you would find that the main mandate of Umsobomvu was mainly to ensure economic participation by young people. But when the NYDA came into being, it had to take both those mandates forward. But over and above that, they knew there were additional things that were added by the National Youth Development Agency Act. Part of those is that the NYDA is expected to foster social cohesion amongst young South Africans. The NYDA is expected to ensure that young South Africans participate in national youth service programs that are aimed at ensuring that they become patriotic citizens of this country. But as well, we're expected to intervene in the education space, making sure that young South Africans are able to get assistance within the education sector, as well as making sure that we address the question of skills development, because part of the challenge that we have amongst our young population is that most of our young people are not properly skilled to be able to get or to be employable or to at least run their own businesses. So we are expected to intervene in those particular spaces as well. So this mandate is quite huge, because we are also expected to participate in the health sector, making sure that young people are maintain or at least are within a healthy lifestyles, or the well-being of young people is taken care of, as well as issues of arts and culture. So almost everything that has to do with young people and development of young people is encompassed within the broader mandate of the NYDA.
The concentration on the performance of the NYDA has been on economic participation of the youth. And do you think that is fair or unfair?
It is highly unfair, because the mandate of the NYDA, as I've indicated to, is quite broad. Economic participation is only one of the many things or the many mandates of the NYDA. So focus only on economic participation dilutes the picture, because when you then want to determine the success rate of the NYDA, you then forget or you then disregard all the other things that the NYDA is doing in other spaces. This speaks to as well the question of the expectation that the finances that the NYDA is getting, it's not doing enough, because then you are only looking at one sector, whereas the majority of the finances that we get, we are deploying it in other areas that nobody's talking about.
But is it not the key issue, given that majority of those that are unemployed are the youth, majority of those that are unskilled are the youth?
Yes, we agree. But what we're then saying, Ike, is that you can't necessarily speak or focus only on economic participation when we're talking about young people, especially in South Africa. I've already given you an indication that majority of those young people that we're talking about, most of them are, you would find that they are high school dropouts. Some of them are varsity or college dropouts. Some of them do have degrees and diplomas, but those degrees and diplomas are not what is required by the economy. So there's a serious need to reskill those young people, either when you want them to be employable or even to enter the enterprise space. So even if you say, let's look at economic participation, you will still need to capacitate those young people. Hence, as the NYDA, we also focus on the question of skills development and as well as capacitation of these young people, so that they're able to at least be able to enter that economy, either as an employee or as an entrepreneur.
Let's look at the capacitation aspect that you've just touched on. In your view, what has been the success rate of the NYDA ever since it was established, especially when it comes to the economic participation, the reskilling of the youth, as you just outlined?
Yeah. If you look at the question of the skilling aspect, we look at the question of the skilling aspect from 2 points of view. We skill young people and empower them insofar as entrepreneurship development is concerned. We run programs on entrepreneurship awareness where we bring young people from all corners of the country, and we basically give them an education or an awareness of saying, besides being an employee, you can actually be an entrepreneur. And these are the things that will need to be an entrepreneur, so that we basically serve and get those young people who are potential entrepreneurs. Once we have identified those young people, we then go further and prepare them to be entrepreneurs. Just this February, we have launched a program called Ituba Lenture, microfinancing, where we are not only giving young people finances. Before we give them finances, we actually take them through a course of business management, so that they know how do they run a successful business, to make sure that the chances of being successful in the business are increased. But also, before we give them that funding, we also give them a technical training. So, for example, if a young person says, I want to go into a business of plumbing, as an example, we will make sure that that young person undergo a training and developmental course in plumbing, so that as and when this young person goes into that space, these chances of succeeding are also increased quite significantly. But as well, from the other aspects of things, we have been running a program called Youth Build, where we are training young people to be artisans. Here you are talking about construction workers, builders, electricians, as well as plumbers and all those sorts of things. In this program, we are producing artisans, because we are saying that the economy of this country needs artisans, but also we're empowering these young people, not necessarily that they should go and be employees, but also that at the end of this type of programs, they can go and form cooperatives, or they can go and start their own businesses and make a living out of that.
Now, Katu, you paint a very wonderful picture that, is ideal and everybody would agree with. Why do you think there is such an outcry?
My take, Ike, is that in the main, many people who comment about the NYDA do not know what the NYDA is supposed to be doing. That's the first thing. The second thing is that they have not necessarily engaged with the NYDA to get the facts about the NYDA. I have had engagements, for an example, in the past on a different radio station with the president of Youth Cope, of Cope Youth, and the president of the DA Youth, who had made public statements that the NYDA must be closed and there must be youth ministry and things like that. But we then invited them to come and engage with us. And after we've engaged the president of the DA Youth, he actually went back to his organization and said, no, the DA Youth has decided now to give the NYDA an opportunity to implement its having engaged with us. And fortunately, the president of Youth Cope is a member of parliament, and he happens to be a part of the portfolio committee that the NYDA accounts to. I went to parliament earlier this year to present the strategy and the budget of the NYDA. And what he said was he was not aware that the NYDA is doing so much, that the NYDA has so many wonderful programs for young people in this country. And his plea was that we need to communicate more. So I'm saying that my perception or my own account of what people say about the NYDA is basically informed by lack of information and understanding of the NYDA.
Do you think that you're making a difference in the lives of the youth of today? I'm asking this because some of the comments will say that this benefits a select few that are close to the leadership of the ANC Youth League.
No, I need to answer this question correctly, Ike. As the NYDA, we are doing what we can within the ambit of the resources that were given by the government, for an example. But we are the first people to admit and to be public about it to all South Africans that whatever we're doing is but a drop in the ocean. It's not enough. It's not adequate. If you're talking about a country where you are saying that at least 40% of its population is young people, and you then speak about a 23% unemployment, which is grossly understated, by the way, because the definition of unemployment in South Africa only speaks about those who would have attempted to look for it. There are those millions of young people who are sitting out there who don't bother to wake up in the morning and say, I'm looking for a job. So more than 70% of that 23% is young people. So whatever we're doing, it's not enough. Hence, we will be making calls such as, can government assist us and give us a little bit more of resources, but also making a broader call to the society in general to say that the private sector, wherever you are in your corner, please take youth development into account in whatever else that you do. Civil society, a non-profit organization, and everybody else. Let's join hands to make a partnership that works for South Africa.
Vusi Tembegwayo is motivational speaker and is the man who is not happy about the NYDA service delivery record. And he says the leaders have forgotten the golden rule that service is about the greater good for the greater number. Having heard, welcome by the way, Vusi.
Thank you, Ike.
And having heard what Katu had to say, do you think this campaign is still one that needs to be pursued?
I think not only one that needs to be pursued, but it needs to be strengthened. And I fully respect one that you've come here for us to have this discussion. But there is a question to be answered, Ike. And the question is this, that it is not possible for so many young people to have the same perception about the same organization, and that perception is incorrect. It is only possible if that perception is driven, one, either by that organization's inability to communicate, which in and of itself would be an organizational failure, or that organization simply not delivering its mandate. We are of the view, and let me be completely honest, the campaign we started is completely apolitical. There's no political influences on it whatsoever. We simply started a campaign a month ago, going to young people to say, we've heard rumors and people talking about how they've not been serviced by the NYDA. Come and share with us your experiences when you have been serviced by the NYDA. It ran for a month. We didn't get any feedback. As soon as the campaign then changed the tone to say, all right, it's clear that the lack of response drives a particular direction. Give us an indication of what grievances you have. The lines went wild. The lines went absolutely wild. Twitter was a buzz. Facebook was a buzz. And it's since carried on and continued. And I would love, I'd love to sit here and claim credit, but I'm unfortunately not that smart. All I did was I got young people to start talking. And they shared some incredibly hair-raising stories. Like about lack of service delivery, lack of availability, lack of information, lack of. And then really the Stop the NYDA campaign was driven by this impetus to say this, that before the government gives the NYDA more money, can the NYDA and its leadership hold a public account of what it is they've done? Because they've been around now for 3 years. And over the 3 years, they've received a stitch over R500 million. And I cannot, as a young person, sit here and be led to believe that after we received over R500 million on a 2 to 3 year period, you've still not made an impact to the extent that when we go to young people and ask a question, not one would stand up and say, actually, they did do something. So for me, there is clearly a huge disconnect. And we must separate the issues here. There is a part of the populace that is driven by popular consensus around what media is publishing about the NYDA. Really, our action campaign has been driven not by that. It's been driven by young people saying, guys, it's enough now. We had Umsobomvu, which in and of itself, let's be completely honest, was a catastrophic failure. And at the change of Umsobomvu into the NYDA, as young people, we sat back and said, well, new organization, new leadership. They're bringing in a funding organization with a policy organization like the National Youth Commission. Perhaps then they will achieve something. And to be completely honest, we've been very disappointed. And that's really what's been driving this campaign, to say it's enough. They must stop now and they must account first.
Have you engaged them on a one-to-one level?
So we've engaged. We've engaged at not at the head office level. We certainly have, especially within the Eastern Cape area, the Western Cape area, small organizations that are NGOs with whom we've engaged, who engage daily with the NYDA. In fact, they have an acronym for the NYDA, which is NYDA, which means NYDA does nada. And I actually said to them, you must move away from that, because what we don't want to do is to start an engagement process that is going to offend or aggrieve the other party. It really is about saying, let's sit first and let's get an understanding of what it is that's been happening and what it is that they've been driving. But from our perspective, the other party has not been forthcoming, because I would imagine, Ike, and let's be honest here, I'm a 27-year-old, okay? Like many young people, I've had to make do with what I've been given in my life. But the overwhelming majority of young people between the age of 16 and 24 are unemployed. You know the numbers. We know the numbers in this country. So when you see young people take to the streets and there's a service delivery protest, I'm of the view that the NYDA cannot divorce itself from that issue, because those are the same young people the NYDA must be servicing. That's the first issue. The second issue is this, is that to the instance that young people who, by the way, are driven very much by the platforms of the internet and social media, that's exactly how young people overthrew the governments in Egypt and Tunisia. We are not the generation of people that will write articles and take to the streets. We'll take to the internet. But that internet is an incredibly powerful platform. Of that instance, and of the fact that it was such an abuzz topic, and yet we have yet to receive a response from the NYDA saying, we've noted your concerns, let us sit and let us perhaps give you an edification about what it is that the NYDA has been doing. That for us is concerning. That we have to meet at an SAFM platform where the entire nation is listening. Or it ought not to have come to this point. It ought to have come to the point where young people could have sat with young people and said, perhaps you don't understand what it is that is our mandate. Let us school you a bit.
Well, we are talking about the NYDA campaign, Stop the NYDA campaign. Vusi Tembegwayo, motivational speaker, is my guest. Katu Ramukumba is the Chief Financial Officer at the National Youth Development Agency. Having heard what Vusi had to say, Katu, what would your response be? And by the way, I'm going to be opening the lines just after the news headlines, 0891 104 207, and go through some of the SMSs that we have already received.
Look, having listened to Vusi just now, I'm more than convinced now that Vusi is shooting in the dark. He's not informed. His campaign is not informed either. By his own admission, he has never engaged the NYDA. He suggests that he has engaged some organization in the Eastern Cape and the Western Cape. The NYDA operates nationally in all 9 provinces. So for him to engage some organizations in 2 provinces, and he thinks that he can come to a conclusion that says that he's better informed about the failures and the successes of the NYDA, I think that's ill-advised, one. The second issue is that Vusi speaks about having tested whether the NYDA is succeeding or it's failing through the Facebook and Twitter. The reality of it is that Facebook and Twitter are personalized media platform. Those who will have engaged or who would have gotten the opportunity to engage on the question that Vusi would have placed are those that are his friends, are those who are in the network or in his personal network. So there are millions of young South Africans who don't even know who Vusi is. If Vusi had said to us here today that he has gone to a platform like SAFM or a newspaper that is published nationally, and young South Africans nationally has had an opportunity to interact with this question, I would sit here and say maybe this debate is informed, and it's informed by facts. But also, Vusi is not being honest when he says that after he has started his campaign on Twitter, there was no attempt by the NYDA or a request by the NYDA to engage with him. The moment we picked up that he has started a campaign on his Twitter account of Stop the NYDA, our executive manager for communications responded to his tweet and requested that he comes and engage with the NYDA. And he actually responded to that tweet by saying that he is willing to engage the NYDA. However, he does not want to do it behind closed doors. He wants to do it in a transparent manner where other young people are. So he shouldn't be saying that we never afforded him an opportunity to engage with us. Hence, even when an opportunity arose, we were told by SAFM that we can come here and Vusi will be here, we felt that we should come here because as the NYDA, we have nothing to hide. We understand that we are public officials, and we understand that concept very well, that being a public official means that you act on behalf of the state, and the shareholders of the state are young people like Vusi in this regard, and other millions of young South Africans out there, and we are ready to account at any moment.
That's Katu Ramukumba, Chief Financial Officer at the National Youth Development Agency. Bring the time to exactly 9:30. When we return, Mike in Durban, Joe in Durban, Anele in Pretoria. We're going to be coming to your calls, and we'll also be reading some of the SMSs. It's 27 minutes to 10 here on SAFM, South Africa's news and information leader. Let's go back to our topic today. The question that we're asking, is the NYDA delivering on its mandate and how effective are they? Vusi Tembegwa doesn't think so. That's why he has started the Stop the NYDA campaign, which has received mixed reactions from various social networks. And looking at some of the SMSs that have come in, we go to the one that came through first. And it says, what about the multi-million conferences by NYDA which are targeted to enrich those who are running the organization? David Mtunzi writes in and says, how can they deliver when all they can display is arrogance and undisciplined behavior? And the other one from Joe in Bramley says, its operational costs are huge and inappropriate. Looking at their salaries alone, they already have economic freedom. And the other one says, I'm not a youth, but have you ever thought of visiting places like Kokstad and see the high unemployment amongst the youth and also to the municipality? And the other one, I'm sure is directed at you, Katu. It says, how does your guest see 20 million being spent on catering help the youth? And the other one from Mark in Cape Town says, what about the 100 million they spent on that notorious party? The NYDA is an ineffective organization, a wasted opportunity for the youth of this country. It is a money hole, which is run, it says it is a money hole run by a cabal of arrogant young political elite. And this one from LM says, the question is, why are they more and more young people have resorted to alcohol ever since the ANC took over? And the other one says, thanks, Vusi, you inspire me, and you inspire me. And the other one says, this one is from, the problem is you are always subjective. You should have called, or this one says, is directed at me. It says, with you, you are always subjective. You should have called an opponent to read of lies. You don't have insight. That's Gits in Pretoria. I don't know, because we have balanced issues here. Vusi, you are against, and the NYDA is represented here, so I don't know what Gates is talking about. Let's go back to the calls now. Anele, you are in Pretoria. Thank you for holding on. I'm going to ask you, gentlemen, to put on your headphones so that you can hear Anele. Anele?
Good morning, Ike, and good morning to Vusi and the CFO of NYDA. I think, one, let's appreciate the fact that the existence of an institution like NYDA came as a result of a decision that was seen by government that two institutions that existed then, the NYC and the Msomo Youth Fund, were not able to deal with issues of young people, and as a result, they were not delivering to the interests and expectations of young people. But what is said about the whole situation is the fact that the very same people who were at the forefront of ensuring that an institution like NYDA come to existence are at now the very same people who have failed dismally to deliver the NYDA mandate to the young people. I think we must applaud the step the bold step that has been taken by VUS, even though I don't agree with the view that says we must stop or close NYDA. I believe that NYDA is a strategic institution which, if led by correct people and if led by people who understand young people's frustrations and who understand what are the needs of young people, this institution can deliver. And I do want to put it to the gentleman who is there from NYDA to say that it's not going to assist to come there and plead ignorance and be rubbishing every single fact that is put across by Vusi, because he cannot, and his bosses as well, cannot explain why would you need to spend 100 million to host people who are coming outside of this country when you are unable to deliver to the young people, hopeless people of this country who are jobless, those who are looking at becoming entrepreneurs. You are unable to provide. I mean, you can explain why would Atama Fokate be given 5.3 million to provide entertainment? Who needs entertainment in South Africa when young people are in the periphery of economic participation in this country? And the second last issue, Ike, for me, is that we can go out there, look for another institutional department that came into existence equally in 2009, just as the NYDA did. I can tell you now, the Department of Higher Education is doing far more better, which is a new department, came into existence in the same year as the NYDA, but it's able to deal with interest and focus issues that are affecting people that that department is supposed to focus on. Why is not the NYDA able to take serious issues of young people? Because we can't forever be spoken to a sophisticated language of English by people who are going to come here and tell us that NYDA deal with issues of young people's lifestyle. We are not interested in lifestyle. Young people are now wanting to be delivered to needs that are going to be addressing their frustrations, not sophisticated language, which is unable to explain why would you need to spend 100 million we've got people from all over the world to come to your shores, but you are unable to service your own.
Yeah, we've got your point, and thank you very much for calling through, Anele. Joe, you are in Durban. Thank you for holding on.
Good day. And I must commend Vusi for being such an icon and an aspiration to the youth. You see, if we say it's mixed reaction from the youth, we may be talking of 99.09%. Which means we leave the NYDA with a positive youth of 0.001. They're not delivering at all. And then one thing I wanted to suggest here, I wanted to suggest that, if the NYDA, this youth organization, I don't even know how to pronounce it. If they know if they want really to deliver, there is lots of youth out there who are trying by all means with their insufficient skills to start businesses. Those are the people they were supposed to help and try to assist them in terms of the red tape of the government and all that, and fight against that and help the youth to go up. Develop those small businesses, help them with the funds, give them the skills and all that, and give them moral support.
Joe, we've got your point. Thank you very much for calling through. Pumlani in Centurion, thank you for holding on. Welcome.
Hey, Ike, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. Pumlani?
Good. I agree to Uvus and I agree to Katu. And I just want to go back to Ukatu. We had Umsobomvu Katu, we had a National Youth Commission. You brought them back into one entity. And I just want to know, how long does it take to get us to understand the strategy? Another thing, Katu, it's really sad because in life, we don't live by being told. We observe most of the time. You go watch a game of soccer, you don't need to know what the coach said in the dressing room. You can just observe the way they play, whether they're being defensive or they're attacking. So how many years must we wait and see you guys moving and delivering? Because the only thing that we have observed, Katu, is the 100 million that people are talking about that was spent on a kissing festival. Further than that, I've never even had my neighbor or my neighbor's child or in another province, someone say, you know what, my brother, you see me today, I've made it thanks to NYDA. None whatsoever, Katu. And you come here in the radio, you say to Vusi, he must be schooled and we must be schooled. How long must we be schooled? When are we going to see action, Katu? We're tired of being schooled. Don't give us 10 youth that you say we have done A, B, and C. They can stand in front of us and see, yes, I've achieved A, B, and C thanks to NYDA. None, you can't say. You are busy telling us you have a communications head, you have what in the offices, we must be schooled. Well,
Pumlani, we've got your point in Centurion. Let's go to Sipo in Orlando.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. Thank you for holding on, Sipo.
My comment, it's actually a question as well. In terms of skills, hello?
We're listening to you.
Yes, in terms of skills within the NYDA, because another problem for me is that people who do not have skills to run organizations, they are given positions. For instance, I can sense from my brother Katu that he's being political in terms of how he addresses another gentleman. My question is that the people who are deployed, those are the people who drive this organization. But if it's political deployment, then we won't see any vision going forward. And we want to know, Ukatu, as an individual, Lapo within NYDA, any vision yet? What's your own vision in terms of seeing youth going forward?
Sipo in Orlando.
The mandate, what's your vision?
We've got your point there, Sipo. Mike in Durban, welcome.
Hey, bro, Ike, how are you, brother?
Well, thanks. How are you, Mike?
Yes. Thanks for this, for this debate this morning. It's what we've been waiting for as the youth of South Africa. Thanks very much for the debate,
You're welcome.
And I want to greet the two gentlemen in studio there, and I want to say to Vusi, I'm in Durban. I'm a street vendor. I finished matric in 2006. I've been in and out of small businesses, working for myself, selling on the streets. I'm one of the people who have tried to contact this NYDA. It was on Sobovu back then. We couldn't get through to it. Apparently, you have to have an ANC Youth League membership to get in Sobovu. Now it's NYDA. You call and no one answers you. We'll get back to you. You fax your things. You do. Vusi, you speak for all of us. The gentleman who's there who works for NYDA, he can come to studio, say whatever he has to say. It's us here at the ground root level, people that are frustrated, The money they are spending, the things they are doing, at the end of the day, it all comes back to us as the youth, He may come there and be political about things and, use the language, that he's using there, try and fool everyone. But at the end of the day, it's us, the youth, who are still unemployed, who are still trying. It's not everyone who's going to go and try and be a street vendor. Most of our youth have resorted to drugs, cocaine, the alcohol, So, I want to say that, please, when us as youth, we say, we are fed up with things. For one, Facebook, when we voice our comments there, the gentleman there for NYDA must not, fool us and say those things are personalized. No, it's the truth. It's just how we feel. We can't write letters. These are networks that we use to voice out how we feel about issues that everyone has access to. So he must not try and patronize us and our opinions and put them in a bag and make them
Point
personal.
taken, Mike in Durban. Thank you very much. We've taken that point and we're going to take a break, come back and get reaction from our guest, Vusi Tembegwayo, motivational speaker, as well as Katu Ramukumba, Chief Financial Officer at the National Youth Development Agency.
Morning Talk on SAFM.
14 minutes to 10 here on SAFM, South Africa's news and information leader, and we are talking about the campaign Stop the NYDA, which has been started by Vusi Tembegwayo, motivational speaker. He's here in the studio with us. Katura Mukumba is Chief Financial Officer at the NYDA. Let's start off with you, Vusi, first with reacting to the SMSs as well as to the calls that we had.
All I can say is that Given the feedback that we've just had on the calls, I think I stand vindicated. There's not one call that came through that said, actually, the NYDA did do something for me. And I cannot be led to believe that there's not one young person who's been assisted by the NYDA who's not listening to this program. So I think we need to take that into account. There's several issues being raised here. There's the issue being raised about the CEO of the NYDA in 2010 earning as much as a cabinet minister. And young people are saying, it's not necessarily that he can earn that, but because we don't see the difference the NYDA has made. That's the first issue. I adjudicated a show on TV called One Day Leader. There were 3 winners that came out of that show. 6,000 young South Africans interviewed for that show. 3 winners, one of whom, Leslie, is now affiliated in some sense or another with the NYDA. But the point of this is this. At the end of the show, 70,000 Rand was guaranteed as a prize to the 3 winners of that competition. To this date, they haven't received a cent. It's a year and a half later. And that money was guaranteed by the NYDA. So when people say you're not doing anything, it's not because they're speaking out of their bottoms. It's because they're not seeing anything. Young people are talking about youth unemployment. We need to talk about how we're going to engage the issue of youth unemployment. I've taken a personal risk here, Ike. You know this. I'm a completely private individual, and I've gone about building myself and my life and my business. I've taken a massive risk here. I got a threatening phone call on Thursday telling me to stop my NYDA rubbish and telling me they know where they live. That's how they got my phone call. So when these things happen, you are then driven to understand that actually you are pursuing something that is worth a pursuit. We can no longer subject our people to the tyranny of the politically connected few. We can no longer do that. People must account, and they must account now. That's why, by the way, I just need to make this point. People keep saying, why stop the NYDA? We are saying stop the NYDA because until they get another cent from government, they must account with what they've done. We can no longer continue the situation of rolling the money and rolling accountability. Because what's happening now is they're interviewing a new board. They're going to bring a new board in. Then they may even bring new management in. And dare I say, if Katu is no longer the CFO, we're going to have somebody else sitting here in 2 years' time telling us, no, but the previous dispensation, that's not good enough. The guys must account for what they've done as a cumulative authority running youth matters. That's what they must do.
What are the alternatives that you're suggesting should happen in place of the NYDA?
You know, we are not of the view that the NYDA must be completely dissolved. Let me make this point very clear. We're not of the view that we must dissolve the NYDA. We are of the view the NYDA must account. We're saying the NYDA must publish its financials since its inception fully, and I don't want the abridged. We don't want the abridged financials here. We want the full financials of the NYDA. They must publish them. They must hold a public congress, an AGM, and every single young person around this country can attend that AGM. And at that AGM, we must put our questions to the NYDA, and they must account. Because until they do that, this cloud that surrounds them as an organization around how they're spending 100 million rand on parties, and DJs getting 60 million rand for programs, and another DJ getting 5 million rand for balloons, those issues will continue. How do you give, and Anela made the point very clearly, how do you give so much money for balloons when a young person is sitting in Lusikisiki running his little store at the corner of 4th and 6th Avenue and he doesn't get assistance from the NYDA? Where is our priority as a nation? Where have we gone to?
Thanks, Ike. I would want to respond to the number of issues that has been raised by your callers and some of the issues that Vusi is raising. But I think maybe just before I delve into the issues or the questions that have come through or the comments that have come through, what is important is to just give an indication that it may be that there are no young people who have called in here to say that we have found assistance from the NYDA, but that does not mean that they do not exist, because the annual report that we produce every year is audited by the Auditor General. That annual report includes, amongst others, performance information. If you look at the 2 annual reports that has been presented in the past 2 years, financial years, you will get an indication that the NYDA has been able to dispense over 60 million rands worth of loans to young people to start their own businesses. You will be able to see that the NYDA has been able to create over 60,000 jobs to young people. You will be able to see that the NYDA has been able to interface with young people on career guidance who are more than 400,000. You will be able to see many, many other performance issues. I mean, as we speak, we have been able to fund a cooperative called Ikasa Agricultural Cooperative in Msinga to develop 1.1 million. We have been able to fund another cooperative to develop 1.5 million zoned recycling in Soweto. And the examples are many. They are endless. But like I said initially when I first spoke, we are the first ones to admit that whatever we're doing is only but a drop in the ocean. What we're doing is not sufficient given the backlog that is out there for young people. So ours is not to defend and say that we're doing what we're doing is well, all is well with young people. We understand the frustrations of young people. Equally, the issue that I want to put forward is that we understand the frustration that is coming through here now, because the reality of it is that whilst the NYDA was put by government to address issues of youth development, and it was pitched at a very high level, almost to an extent that every young South African looks at the NYDA as a panacea of all their problems. It is not true. It is not. NYDA cannot be the panacea of all the problems that are facing the young people in this country. But equally, government itself did not fund the NYDA correctly for the NYDA to be able to perform at levels that it should have had it been funded correctly. Vusi makes an example of, or there is a caller who makes an example of the Department of Higher Education having been started at more or less the same time as the NYDA. The Department of Education was funded correctly. Higher Education was funded correctly. Hence, it is able to perform at the levels that it's performing. I will tell you that when the NYDA came into being, or when the merger of the two institutions came into being, National Treasury itself did a due diligence and said what would be the right funding level for the NYDA to be able to perform at its barest minimum. And their report suggested that the NYDA, as at 2008, should be funded at a level of 600 million per year. But what we have seen is that since the establishment of NYDA has always been funded to the tune of less than 400 million every year. So that speaks to the mismatch. So it's almost as if the institution is set up against young people. We understand the frustration, but we're saying that it is not out of the failure of the leadership of the institution. There are issues of the festival.
Carry on.
The issues of the festival that are raised here. The festival, we spent about 100 million or so on the festival. The NYDA has a responsibility of fostering relations and solidarity of young people across the world. Now, when we look at the festival itself, it is important, especially in the case of South Africa, to also speak to the situations that are happening in our neighboring states, as an example. The problems of Zimbabwe are South African problems. The problems of Mozambique are South African problems. The problems of Nigeria are South African problems, because when these countries do not find a political and governance stability, all the young people flocks South Africa, and we are unable to therefore cope with the developmental agenda of young people in this country, because the numbers keeps on increasing, and this does not only affect or impact a youth age level. It's across the board. But other issues of the ANC Youth League membership and things like that, those things are just a creation that is out there. It is said that the NYDA appoints Youth League members. I know for a fact that the NYDA, in its form as NYDA, has only employed 60 employees. The 330 employees were inherited from the former Umsobomvu Youth Fund and the National Youth Commission. So if there is any truth to the fact or the suggestion that the NYDA employs ANC Youth League members, that blame must not be forwarded at the NYDA door, because it's a sin of inheritance, not the sin of incumbent. Also, the question of the leadership of the NYDA, the leadership of the, even if we speak about the festival, the leadership that led or that took the decision to have a festival is not necessarily there at this point in time. I was not there when the festival was held, and 9 other executive managers who are responsible for running the NYDA today were not there. The board that took the decision to have the festival is no longer there. That term of board has come to an end, and we are saying that as the NYDA, we ought to be given an opportunity to run this institution and to deal with the issues of youth development. But not to say that the festival was wrong. I mean, it can be suggested that issues of the Arab Spring emanated from the youth festival, because young people from those countries came here and they were inspired that they must take charge of their own futures and their own governments and make sure that there's democracy in their own countries. But also, just lastly, and this is a question of curiosity for me, for Vusi, for an example. He speaks about the salary of the CEO of NYDA, that he earns 1.8 million. The CEO of NYDA possesses 4 degrees. 2 of those of which are master's degrees. He has more than 10 years managerial experience. Before he came to the NYDA, he was a municipal manager. Now, in comparison, if the CEO of NYDA was not working for NYDA, could he not have earned that salary somewhere else? Or could he have not earned more than that? But for me, I would want to direct a question personally to Vusi, because I know that at one point, Vusi gave us a quote to come and be a motivational speaker at an event that we were holding. Vusi was going to charge us 20,000 rands an hour. By implication, if Vusi makes 20,000 rand an hour, if he works an 8-hour day, Vusi would make about 160,000 a day. So if Vusi can earn that much of money, why is it that he thinks that a person who's the responsibility of being a CEO cannot earn a fraction of what he earns, what he's supposed to be getting?
Katu Ramakumba, Chief Financial Officer at the National Youth Development Agency. We're going to get your response to that, Vusi.
Morning Talk on SAFM.
The NYDA service delivery record under the spotlight. There is a campaign, Stop the NYDA campaign. Vusi Tembegwa, you wanted to respond to what Katu was saying.
I think Katu's last point was, if I may be honest, completely below the belt. And by the way, Katu, I earn 35,000 Rand a talk, not 20,000. But that's because I have a 10-year speaking record. I'm the only African speaker in the top 10 in the world, and the list is endless. But you're missing the point. The point is not what Vusi's earning. The point is not even what your CEO is earning. The point is, what is your CEO earning, cognizant of what the record of the organization is? That's the point. The point is, if young people are aggrieved about what your organization is doing, and we're seeing a CEO who's earning a lot of money, naturally we're going to ask questions. We're going to say, what is going on here? That's the point I wanted to make. You spoke about the festival and the fact that they spent over 100 million rand at a festival to foster international relations. But the NYDA by mandate needs to foster international relations, develop entrepreneurs, fund entrepreneurs, create a skills base. So if you're spending 28% of your budget on one of those mandates in one event at one time of the year, and then you expect us as a young young people to turn around and say, yeah, actually you are underfunded. No, you're not underfunded. You're clearly using funds inappropriately. You're not understanding the priority of what you need to be driving as a nation. Because frankly, I would rather be given 5,000 Rand to fund my business as a hawker than to go to some festival and attend it where balloons are handed out. And I don't mean to be fallacious here, but that is at the heart of the matter. Is let's be honest. I just need to make this point very, very clear. We are not saying that what the CEO is earning is not right. We're saying what the CEO is earning is not right, cognizant of what the organization is or is not doing. That's at issue here.
We're going to ask the two guests to stay until after the news and we'll wrap up with them.
Morning Talk on SAFM.
Many thanks to Vabakshini Chetty and the news team. We're just wrapping up our discussion with regards to the Stop the NYDA campaign. Vusi Tembegwayo, motivational speaker, my guest. Katu Ramakumba, Chief Financial Officer at the National Youth Development Agency. Just before I take closing comments from you, gentlemen, here are some of the SMSs that have come through. This one is from Mpumezi in Johannesburg, who says, as long as the NYDA is run by inexperienced young lions, it will fail. And the other one is from Abel, who says that so-called motivational speaker is obviously a DA apologist and is trying to score cheap political points at the expense of the NYDA, of the unemployed. And the other one says there is no chance whatsoever to redeem the NYDA. For the benefit of Republic of South Africa, close the NYDA down. And the other one says, what is the NYDA doing for the Qwaqwa youth? Is there an office in that region? And the Katu is a good speaker who is able to convince a poor person that he's actually rich. I grew beyond 35 years, tried so many times, but I couldn't get help. Stop NYDA, that's the signature. It might help if the youth would have... that one, it's very insulting SMS. So please, if you want to contribute to the program positively, we wouldn't like to see some of the SMSs that are coming through really clearly that are really not fit to be read on air. Vusi, it's clean and clear that they stole the money like cunning. Vusi, it's clear that the NYDA stole the money that they had to use for the festival. And Katu is confused. He has no idea of their own mandate. The chair is a playwright and the CEO is a town planner. The wrong people are running the organization. And from East London, Mark writes, Vusi, please run for president. Gentlemen, your reaction to the SMSs and closing comments. Let's start with you, Vusi.
I just want to make this point. You spoke earlier about whether or not young people can speak on the platforms of Facebook, and the CFO was very keen to point out that I use my own personal network. He failed to point out, however, that the NYDA has its own Facebook platform, NYDA Jobs, on which it has 11,000 likes, and under which there are 93% of the comments are negative about the NYDA. On your own page, not mine. This is not a myth. This is not an agenda. This is not political. This is people's reality. You need to stop fighting Vusi and start addressing what the issues are. Young people are amiss, are unhappy, and they're extremely, extremely disgruntled. And I would suggest that the NYDA attend to that issue. That's what this is about. Thank you.
Thank you, Ike. I think just before I close, I would want to clarify the issue of the festival. The festival was never funded by the allocation of the NYDA coming from the National Treasury. The funds that were used to run the festival were special fund-raised funds. Government made a special concession where it offered NYDA additional 29 million for the festival. A cabinet approved the running of the festival, by the way. And the rest of the expenses that related to the festival was donated funds. We went out there and we asked for assistance, and various organizations contributed to that. So we must just clarify that the money of the budget allocation of the NYDA was not used for the festival. But I think just in closure, one would want to then maybe invite people with views like Vusi to an engagement where the NYDA will open up its track record, what we have been able to do, what we have not been able to achieve, to all South Africans, young South Africans. We can go to Constitutional Hill. Vusi, you are invited. You can come in, you can facilitate that had that engagement with all young South Africans. We have nothing to hide. In fact, on our own accord, we have been doing university roadshows where we have been engaging young people, saying what is it that they think that needs to be done in order to advance youth development in this country, and for them to ask any questions that they have about the NYDA. So, like I said, we're public servants. We understand that the public is the shareholder. We are ready to account at any moment.
I've just had an instruction from my producer to take 2 calls, Sia in Johannesburg and Neo in Harrismith, because they've been holding on for quite some time. I'm going to ask you gentlemen to put your headphones on. And Neo, you are in Harrismith. Welcome. Or is it Sia in Johannesburg? Sia?
Hello.
Hello, Sia. Go ahead.
Yes, no, thank you very much, Ike, for taking my call. I think it's very important to note that what is the issue at hand here is the issue of the festival that was hosted by the NYDA in 2010. But I think to have clarified the fact that the money that was used to host that festival, as it has been reported in the media, but people are choosing to ignore the fact that the money was not coming from the budget of the NYDA. I think that's the first issue. The second one is that the presidency gave funds for the festival to be hosted, which is the first issue. But secondly, I think Vusi as well as Anele, who made the point earlier, I'm making the point that the reason for disbanding the Umsobomvu and the Youth Commission to form the NYDA was because of its limitations in terms of reach and impact. And therefore, when the president or the treasurer conducted a due diligence to say this institution, for it to perform, it must be given this particular budget. However, when the institution was then established, that budget was not given to the institution, leading to shortcomings carrying over from those that it inherited from the 2 previous institutions. And for Anele to make a comparison between the Department of Higher Education, which gets the biggest budget allocation from the National Treasury, with the NYDA, which has got a huge mandate of addressing or expectations that it must address all the social ills or all the challenges that are facing that. I think it's very inconsiderate as well as very irresponsible for people to speak in public platforms about issues that they are not clear about themselves, in the process leading South Africans. To say the NYDA must account in public and so on, there are annual financial statements that are published through annual reports that the NYDA publishes through Parliament. And those are reports, I believe, they are available for public consumption. And if people like this want to access those, they should go to the NYDA, they should go to the website. The financial statements are there for everyone to see. I think as Kato has put it clearly, those who want to listen will listen and hear the NYDA saying. But those who tend to listen to the media speaking about the festival, which was then the Kissing Festival, based on 2 delegates out of 15,000 who were kissing. It's very unfortunate. So I'm saying, even
Sia, you've made your point. Unfortunately, we don't have the luxury of time now. In Harrismith, welcome.
Hi, good morning, away.
All right, go ahead now.
Yeah, no, I think one thing that is Vusi's campaign must do is to mobilize young people to understand as to how to apply for funding in the NYDA. Because as we are speaking now, most of the people are criticizing. You cannot even go through and check as to whether or not were they meeting the requirements in as far as the funding is concerned. So I think the budget of NYDA is not enough. And the issue of unemployment is not only the issue of the NYDA, but the government departments are still having that responsibility.
Now, in Harrismith, I'm going to ask you to respond to the 2 calls that we've had and the points they raised.
Yeah, I think both calls made their points very clearly. I would just like to urge young people listening to this program. The Facebook page is still up. We're still garnering support. Go in and like the page and share your stories. And we've been clear on this, Katu. It's not a political campaign. If young person have positive stories to share about the NYDA, go to the page and give us your positive stories. Because we don't censor. I can't censor the content of what you're putting in there. But the overwhelming majority of the stories there have been negative. That's the first. The second is we've got a petition running where young people can go in and sign on that petition, and they can again add impetus to the Stop the NYDA campaign. Our point, and I need to make this very clear, is not to fight any political battles. Our point is to bring the NYDA to account. And to simply say their financials have been published, frankly, doesn't suffice. Young people are unhappy, they're disgruntled, and the NYDA must sit down and engage with young people about matters about which we believe concern us. Because failing that, this petition, we believe, will go straight to the President's office.
No, I think in closing, I would want to once again say that, as I've indicated, ours is never to be defensive. And we are saying that we understand the frustrations of young people out there in the main, because we agree. We are not in every corner as we would want to. When we engage Treasury, for example, and we say we want additional funding, part of what we want to do is we want to make sure that every district municipality in this country at least has a full service NYDA branch where a young person can walk in there and get everything that the NYDA offers. We will also, on a continuous campaign to make sure that we go into partnership with all municipalities in this country to make sure that NYDA offices are found there, so that young people are able to access NYDA wherever they are. And yes, you will get a number of young people who will go and like Vusi's page and so forth and so, because the majority of them are far away from where the offices of NYDA are, which is part of the reason why we're saying let's get funding so that we can reach these young people, so that they can get the service of the NYDA, so that they don't have to be taken for a ride and be manipulated or on campaigns like Stop the NYDA campaign. Because people's genuine feelings of frustrations that they don't have jobs, they don't have skills, and are being exploited, not in a view of providing assistance. If the view was to provide assistance, Vusi could have easily come to the NYDA and say, gentlemen, I am offering my services. I'm a concerned young South Africans. I want to assist in youth development. Let's sit down around the table. I think I can assist you on how you can do this thing better.
I think we'll take you up on the Constitutional Hill invitation and get the youth to come through and communicate with us so that we can take that up and see that it happens.
Yes.
During the Youth Month, I presume.
Yes, we'll facilitate that process.
Thank you very much. Katu Ramukumba, Chief Financial Officer at the National Youth Development Agency, as well as Vusi Tembegwa, motivational speaker. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. 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 For joining us.